Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast, and hopefully rolling along into Game 4 here in Indiana, Boston and the Pacers. I think even as a Celtics fan, you kind of want some more hoops, so hopefully we don't see a sweep tonight necessarily from this Pacers squad, but we'll be taking a look at best bets in this video. Also have play-up props up in the other episode, and we're bringing you both each and every day now, moving forward throughout the postseason, so subscribe to that page and follow along. Also want you to head to thelines.com and use everything that we have up on the site right now while you're making these bets in the NBA. Nate, let's go ahead and jump right into your first best bet for this potential closeout game for these C's.
Yeah, but once again, expect Indy to have a good offensive first half, and their team total actually went down to 54.5 after they dropped 69 in that very good first half, kind of the way we expected the game to play out, except for the sense that Celtics defense was just amazing late. But I don't know how much that carries over into the first half here, so I'm going actually alt 2 points higher, 56.5 to get you plus 120. Maybe you want the even money at 55.5, but I think 56 is an easy floor for this Pacers offense. I mean, you look at them after a loss in the playoffs, 60, 59, 73, 63, 61, 51, and 69 the last game, 51 in game 2 in Boston. As we remember, they went scoreless for 6+ minutes early in the second quarter. And still, like, you know, if you go scoreless for that long and you still get over 50 and you still get over almost this total, like that is how quick this offense can score. I mean, Halliburton was very bad in that stretch for 6+ minutes. And look, I'm not going to jump on the hot takes of like this incredibly knee-jerk reaction, which we see all the time when a star is out. Is like, do they need to trade Halliburton? Like, let's unlock Nembhard. It's like, no, but like the guys are playing together. They still have a system. They're still going to put points on the board. Like, I would be very surprised if the Pacers don't finish with close to 110 here in this elimination spot. And most of that's going to come in the first half because, as we've seen from the Celtics, like the pace drops precipitously more than any other team in the second half, and they're able to ratchet up their defense. Like, they don't have much depth right now. Their bench is doo-doo, so they have to kind of conserve some of their energy. Drew Holiday might not be able to go here, or he might be sick again, in which case, like, he's going to save most of his energy for down the stretch when he kind of came alive with key rebounds and that key game-winning steal, essentially. But in the first half, like, they're going to get a bit outpaced, no pun intended. But, I mean, you got TJ McConnell leading the paint pressure squad, got them 42 paint points in the first half and 12 fast break points. And then Boston was like, all right, we're shutting all that down. I mean, they still allowed 26 paint points in the second half, but only 3 fast break. Just some incredible rim protection for Boston was what we saw down the stretch, right? With like guards jumping up to block the Pacers at the rim. Like, you got to beat us from deep. But I mean, I went over this before game 3. The role players have been so much more effective shooting from 3 at home. They have still, averaged now 65 in the first half at home. Such a bench advantage because of what I mentioned. So that second quarter is going to be the key. 35 a game in the second quarter at home. And I mean, just a spot here where the Celtics are probably just fine, on some level, closing this out at home, maybe getting Porzingis back if they wait one more game, getting him a little bit of run before the finals. And we saw that in Game 4 at Cleveland, where they did close out, but like the first half was like a little dicey, right? I mean, 62-57. Cavs did not even pressure the rim. They shot 11 for 25 from 3, but they still got a bunch of points down. And I think the Pacers can score at least that much here in their home environment where they just love to run and gun.
Yeah, and I think it's 107.5 for their team total on the game, and I'm good with that as well. I am on the over in this game, like the rest of America and planet Earth, I imagine, and that always gives me pause, but the same time, like, I know they kind of barely went over this total last game, and Vegas is still keeping this thing for the most part. I say Vegas. I hate saying Vegas, but you know what I mean. The sports books, a lot of them not even in Vegas, obviously the ones that we're talking about, but we'll call it Vegas, whatever. They do still have this at 222.5, and you might think, well, like, this just only has gone over. But to me, that does give you a little bit of caution. It's still just like, it's a closeout game. It's Boston that I could see once again coming back out in the first half in a way that's like either they're going to come out and be a little bit more lackadaisical, which really just means on defense. Because like you said, all the fast break points were coming in the first half there for the Pacers. And they really just ran them through. But like even at down, 10, like even at the end of that second quarter, Boston just kind of proved that like, they're like, well, when we want to take this seriously, we will. And that was indicative of the Drew Steele that came at the second half, right? They had like 44 points with like 2 minutes left. All of a sudden there's 1 minute left and they have like 52. And you're like, whoa, that was a fast little 8 points that they got. Drew gets a steal off the inbound, yada, yada. Pacers were careless. Ben Shepherd looks like he would rather be anywhere else on the planet than playing basketball in that game. And that was part of some of the turnovers at the end of that quarter. So like, yeah, I still think Boston's able to come, like I say, Boston come along for the ride. What I mean by that is the Pacers are going to be going balls to the wall. The Celtics are going to come along for the ride and put up their points when they feel like it, which will be somewhat at will, man. Jason Tatum was proved that like if he's really just engaged and like taking Nesmith to the bucket, that there is no matchup that can really stop him. And obviously the shooting came along as well in this game for him. But even without that, like he started really hot going to the basket, getting those free throws in the first quarter, really just dominating that first quarter in a way that like Jaylen Brown didn't even need to get his consistently gotten 5 points in that quarter. So the pace continues to be at least at about 94 or so. I mean, it's gone down since game one, but we're back in Indy. Pace goes up a little bit. Indy scores that 118 to 119 at home consistently. I think this thing does get up to 230 in this game. And if it's because in the fourth quarter, we've just got no defense backups playing and all offense, which is also the case for Boston, which is that their defense is not inexistent in the second unit. Luke Cornett's not even going to be there. So we're talking about maybe Xavier Tillman and Kata and all these guys coming in to play. And they just play a lot, just not as much defense in that sense. And you're going to get all the backups for the Pacers who have gotten legit minutes this season, right? Like the guys we're going to see, like Isaiah Jackson and whomever else is in there in the fourth quarter, if this thing is out of control, then they'll be there. And I think -7.5 is the way that I go for Boston as well, to be honest, before I would take anything. If you're just talking about the core spread, just wanted to put that out there as well, where there's a lot of sort of data to indicate that when a team loses in game 3 and goes down 3-0 and they're in their own building, even if they cover in the previous game, Game 4 comes around, and it's like you missed your shot. You're down 3-0. You already know this doesn't happen, that teams don't come back statistically. Even when the Celtics came back to tie it up 3-3 last year, couldn't finish the deal. So like it does sort of just like wreck you a little bit on the inside, and you kind of lose it there. So I still think points are a good look here because, like you said, the Pacers are going to be pacing no matter what. They're going to get guys in there who are ready to go and looking to score. It's also just going to keep getting worse by everybody that comes in as the backups. They're progressively worse on defense as well. So even the backups for the Celtics should still be able to get theirs and bump up those stats. So we'll take over 222.5. And if you're asking me for a side, I would take the 7. I would just eat the 7.5 points and take it for the Celtics.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, my one concern with taking the whole game total, which is why I went first half line, is just how good Boston was down the stretch. And like that game barely went over last game, despite the Pacers going crazy in the first half. It's like we've seen this over and over in the fourth quarter from this team, that they're just not going to be able to score in the clutch. Another example of young guys, just struggling in that type of playoff environment to when it slows down to an 86 pace to get the right shot and make the right decision. And with the level of physicality Boston was able to bring. Yeah. So I hope that Boston would cover for this over as well. Like I wouldn't actually correlate Pacers to keep it close and for this to go over. Cause I think you want it to be a little more back and forth down the stretch. And hopefully Rick Carlisle does not wave the white flag with 9 minutes left because I need that for my same game parlay here, which is, sort of the Pacers' three more reliable guys, Nembhard, Siakam, TJ McConnell. And you can play around with the exact number you have here based on what the option are on the book. I was saying Nembhard 15, Siakam 18, not even going all the way to 20, and TJ to 10 points. These are to get you about plus 110. And I'm not saying like Nembhard is going to replicate a 30-point outburst. I think the Celtics will have their antennae up a little bit more on him, but the disrespect to say like he ain't doing nothing again, like Celtics are going to put the clamps on him. Like, no, this kid is a really good player. Like he has got a bag. He is very good going to the basket and has shot very well. Like you don't just swish a curl 3-pointer without any hesitation while fading to your right as a right-handed three-point shooter. And you're not playing with like an insane amount of confidence in these finals. Like whatever his demeanor looks like this kid believes in himself and is very, very good. And so for him to get 15, which is a notch below the core prop 15.5, which I like just fine. I don't think we're too worried about that. TJ, we were a little worried about whether playing extended minutes without Halliburton would hurt his energy. I don't think we really saw that. I mean, he only went up to 29 minutes, did not play a huge starter minutes load, but still blowing by dudes all day. And as we mentioned, Drew a little tired, a little under the weather. He was not able to keep TJ in front. And just an incredible amount of like pivoting and finishing to go 10 for 17 against the Celtics team. And then Siakam, the angle, I mean, he got to 22, of course. He's now 20 plus in 6 straight. So I don't know if we're that worried about him getting 20, but it's kind of the adult in the room spot. It's an elimination spot. He's gone for 20 and 19 in these playoffs in closeout wins for the Pacers. He had 24 last year for Toronto in an elimination spot. But each time the stakes kind of rose in these earlier rounds, we saw him just be like, I have playoff experience. I know you guys don't. Like, get on my back. In the first half in particular, he has 15 plus in 4 of the last 5 first halves, right? He's come out and set the tone, and the Celtics don't really have a great matchup for him, or the Jays aren't, necessarily giving their 110% on him, maybe saving some energy for Luka next round. But yeah, I trust all these guys to be around 15 plus points if the Pacers are going to be up near 100, 107, like their team total. So I think you parlay them any way you see fit.
Yeah. Siakam was pretty frustrating though in the last game in the second half. That was a big part of it, and they switched up the D a little bit. I mean, Al was still on him for the most part, and to be honest, like it is a bit of a mismatch because anywhere outside of 15 feet, Pascal is going to be able to get around Al Horford. Celtics are fine with that though too, so that's a big part of all of that. My final bet here is an interesting one. I'm going back to the head-to-head stuff because I mean we both like Nembhard, as chalky as it might seem, like over and Nembhard, like it's I'm fine with both of it. The prop hasn't gone up high enough on Nemby for me to feel scared away from it. I'm going to take him one of these head-to-head bets with Derek White. And go that he's going to get one more point than Derek White in this game. And Derek White's in for some positive regression too, but like it's hard for me to see him like necessarily trying to take over on offense or really not like getting the ball out of Tatum's hands and into Derek White's. Like a lot of Derek White's big games came during the moments where Jason Tatum didn't have it in these playoffs, which was really not in this series, to be honest. It was much more in past series. And this was never going to be a great series for Derek White points-wise with the way that the Pacers play defense on the perimeter, knowing that he's going to have to get most of his stuff inside the paint and inside the three-point line, rather. And that's kind of what it comes down to is like I just see the usage for Nembhard to just be maintained, right? He took 21 shots last game. He was averaging about 10, but bumped that up to about 11, 12 in the last like 5 games. And we talked about this last game when we both bet on him as well for points and assists was like something kind of changed in Nemby. And I think I know what it was. It was that he didn't have to guard Jalen Brunson anymore. It's really interesting because I did also look at Nemby. This is totally pop psychologist, but like look at him in the championship game against Baylor when he was at Gonzaga. Got roasted in that game, was like looked at to like go bang down low and get boards and just like lost some confidence, it seemed like. And if you watch some of that game, it was like similar to sort of how he was playing against the Knicks, where you were just like, oh man, he just got crushed on defense. Now he's coming back and like he doesn't really have it on offense. He's scared to like miss shots because he just got blown by on whatever. He doesn't have a really, it's not what they're looking for from him anymore, is like being a lockup defender on a guy like Jalen Brunson. So really, I think his confidence is skied since that game 5 against the Knicks. And in that time frame now, he's up, if you include the 32 last game, he's up at about 17 points per game in that time frame. So I'm still good with the 16.5 because I think the shots are still going to they're not going to fall from 21 to like 10. If anything, it's still going to be at 15 or more. And that's where the projections are for Nembhard in this game, is at least about 15 shots, right? And he's been incredible getting to the rim. You talk about his confidence. It hasn't been just the 3-pointers. I love the fact that the threes were opened up by his confidence going to the rim. And my first thought when Drew Holiday was coming out on him was like, oh no, this is not good. I didn't really take into consideration strongly enough that Drew Holiday is going to be guarding him. But Drew's still somewhat under the weather, as we know. And I'm not saying that necessarily was the reason that Nembhard did well last game was that Drew was sort of sick. He was taking everybody in. We talked about how he's got that really great slowdown and change of speed and change of pace that he's shown at this point, and the propensity to finish around the rim. And guess what? KP ain't walking through that door this game, so they don't have a shot blocker. Luke Cornett would be better than Al in this case, but Al's so focused on Pascal Siakam, plus he's just not the off-ball defender that he used to be, as we know. So there's not as much in the lane to stop Nembhard from getting the teardrop and getting the bucket all the way to the rim, because he had 5 field goals made inside the restricted area in this last game as well, alongside a couple of free throws. And the 4 for 7 from deep was helpful, but I think he's going to have a better time shooting from 3. I know he's going to take more. I'm very confident he's going to take more shots than Derek White in this game. And so I'm going to keep going with Nembhard. Obviously, if you're talking to me about which one, I honestly don't even care if you wanted to take over on Derek White points. That wouldn't stop me from saying that Nembhard's going to get 20. Derek White's going to be closer to about 15 or 16. I just think with the volume and everything, he's a better play to get more points than Derek White in this one.
Yeah, because there's so much dialogue about the Jays and who's going to step up game by game, and I think Tatum, when you see that type of game from him last game, where it wasn't just the fact that he was scoring and dictating every part of the game, but being overtly fiery and demonstrative, which he is not usually. I think that is him hearing a bit of the smoke, right? That hearing Kendrick Perkins say, Jaylen Brown is the best player on your team, and whatever, he wants to internalize that kind of self-doubt, be no, I'm going to go out and show everybody that I'm definitely the man on this team. And when Tatum is dominating the ball like that, Derek White is very much just facilitating, being a connective piece. He's not the Derek White who dropped 38. And honestly, since then, he hasn't really sniffed 20 in these playoffs, has he? And we think Nembhard, out of necessity, is going to have to give the Pacers 20 with Halliburton assumedly out. And they had that, just a bit of human nature for the Celtics, that I don't think they're going to be 110% on we got to shut this dude down. We can't drop this one in Indy. They know they have this in the bag. They can go back home and win by 25 and it'll be just fine.
Yeah, 100%. I would say the Pacers, Tatum and company took it. Pacers, to a degree, choked it away. You can't score 40 points like that in the second half and expect to beat a Celtics team. Scored what? They got outscored 33-21 in the fourth. I think the Celtics go into the fourth quarter down 10. They're we got this. Don't even worry about it. We've seen it before. We'll see it again. So that is all the time that we have for you, though, in Best Bets. Also have those player props up, as I mentioned, each and every day now moving forward. So continue to follow along and subscribe to that page. Until we see you next, happy betting.